Good evening. Hey, how you doing? It's great to see you this evening. We're Moravi and Carol,
Yes.
and so glad you could join us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome to our living room.
Yeah.
We're really good to see you. Glad to see you.
I think this has become part of our lives, really.
Like Tuesday evening, we have visitors in our living room.
Yeah, it's just
And we love to host you, by the way. I think we just really enjoy having this conversation with you, wherever you're watching from. So hey, check in, tell us your name and where you're watching from. We love to know who's here. We just love to know who's in our house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also tell us how long you've been watching. Since when? Member since when?
When did you start watching? Asking for friends. If
Yes.
you're new, just say hey, new first time. If you
Yeah.
if you think like you've been watching like 2 episodes ago, or
Yeah.
like
3
started from the
episodes
beginning,
or started, last year.
let us know. We'd love to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far we have revealed, Wameres from Germany.
From Germany. Woohoo.
Yes, Karibuni Sana Wameres. Just tell us when you started watching. How
These
long?
guys are members like
The
from
members
day one,
since
I think.
Day one,
I think. I don't know. Clarify if that's true.
Yeah. So anybody else watching, just register. Membership registration. Just say your name and how long
you've been watching.
Yeah.
Well, it's really cool. I mean, by the way, we love doing this. Actually, but I don't know why do you enjoy doing this? How come you enjoy doing this? Because I know you enjoy this.
I enjoy it. I think to me it's like a giving back. I feel that we were very fortunate to have mentors who kind of shared with us their lives, and so for me, I'm like, marriages need not break up really when you can get a little direction, in your marriage.
Wow.
Yeah. How about
That's so
you?
deep. No, I'm stuck there. No, but it's true. I mean, I like that. I like that answer.
Yeah.
You're a deep woman.
Yeah. Well, and you? What's your?
Why do I like doing it? I like doing
Do you
it
have a
'cause-
deep answer?
Yeah, because my wife likes doing it.
Okay, that's as deep as it gets.
Well,
But I came to terms with that.
I actually enjoy doing it because I know it makes you happy. And actually, it's not like I don't enjoy it. But I think my biggest motive for doing this is because I know that it's a fun thing to do together, and I enjoy doing things together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And I know you're passionate about marriage, and so am I.
yeah.
So I mean, it's just fun that we can
But we can
do it together. It was your
I love
idea,
it.
by the way. A lot of the concepts that happen in this show are. If you're looking for somebody who's like responsible, who's a genius behind it,
Yeah.
she's the one. So I kind of tag along and I do what I'm told to do. But I mean, I
Yeah,
enjoy it, but I
right.
do it willingly. I do it willingly and gladly because it's something that I think you're right. It does add
Yeah.
value to people.
Yes.
We've had great stories of people just sharing how it's been a blessing to them. And so I think for me, that's what I really enjoy about the show. It's just getting feedback from people saying, wow, this has changed my life, or
Yeah.
this has given me a new perspective.
Yeah.
So I can see
We have passes
Percy saying pioneer class.
Pioneer class.
She was like there from the
from
beginning.
the beginning.
That's actually I can vouch that's true. And I love the fact that you always comment Percy's. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Percy's getting married soon.
Yeah.
Woo!
Fantastic.
Yes.
I
So
hope we're all invited to how it. Well, maybe we can do
it's
virtual.
gonna be in Kampala.
Yeah, but
Yeah, you
maybe
better share.
virtual.
Maybe Percy's we can actually do like, can you get married on Tuesday night? Like we make it the show. That asking
Wow.
for a friend. Okay,
that would
just
be
scratch
something.
that.
Just
Scratch
scratch
that.
that.
Yeah, that was not a good idea.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, I hope we can hang out with her soon
Yeah.
before they get married. This
Yeah.
marriage thing is happening soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, tell us where you're watching from, and would love to just hear your voice. And if you have friends who need to be watching, please let them know it's time for asking for a friend.
Yes.
Eunice says, hey, watching from Thailand. I
Wow.
love it. Started watching towards the end of last year thanks to my husband. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Like you guys live in Bangkok, or like remember we once did a stopover in Thailand,
Yes. It was really nice.
and it's a fascinating place.
Yeah.
Do you live there or do you work there? I mean, maybe we'll come and visit you. Like I'm looking for a place to go visit.
Yeah.
No, but like we
Well,
enjoyed our visit when we went to
When
Thailand.
we went to
That
Thailand.
was a
Yeah.
fun stopover.
Yeah. So you started watching from last year. Lucy Wanja from Nyeri.
From Nyeri, yeah.
Tell us, Lucy, when you started watching.
Pastor says, what a cost-effective wedding. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the thing. I mean,
yeah.
and by the way, we don't charge. Just come for free. This venue is free.
We'll just stream live.
We'll just stream it live for the whole world to see. You'll have all the guests
Uh,
and no cost.
At no
People
cost.
can bring their own snacks to your wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think in Kampala they call it like a scientific wedding. I think that's what you guys call it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
that's
scientific because it's all online, It's like
scientific wedding.
So,
I mean, okay.
So Eunice says, I'm studying, but my husband is in Kenya. Oh, poor guy. I hope he comes to visit you soon.
Yeah.
And I hope he gets a chance to at least hang out with you. But it's great to have you over, Eunice, and all the best in your studies. I don't know if you've learned to speak Thai by now. What I liked about Thailand was cheap food.
Yes, actually, lots of rice.
Like
rice
food was affordable. You know, I was like, man, I think Africans were con.
Yeah, there was lots of rice, chicken, and bamboo
shoots.
I mean, it's
lots of other interesting things.
Yeah.
So hey, so today we want to talk about gender difference in marriage. That's what we're going to be talking about. But before we jump there, as usual, I want to hear what your high was this week.
My high. Okay, can I be honest?
Yeah.
I really don't enjoy housework.
You don't, huh?
No, not really.
And you've done a bit of it this week.
Yes, I've done quite a bit, and I've enjoyed it.
Oh, you have?
Yes, I mean, I really thank God He answered my prayer.
That's an interesting
one
to confess to just before gender roles in marriage.
Yes.
So you enjoyed housework. So you enjoyed washing dishes and making meals for your family.
Dishes. I think I don't mind the washing dishes, the cooking part, but I haven't.
Well, I mean, and the kids were like, "Wow, mom can cook."
Like, yeah.
Maybe you're a really good cook.
Thank you.
Yeah. When you do it.
Yes. So, but I prayed, Lord, help me enjoy it and help my family enjoy the food.
Oh my goodness, that's good food.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep from adding weight in this house. I'm surrounded by good chefs.
Yeah.
So okay, that was your high.
And yours?
So my high, I think you know what it is, huh? Like I don't know. There's just something. I think I'm growing older. I'm becoming more and more like my dad. I don't understand this, but I just enjoy being outdoors in the garden.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like I planted a few trees this week.
And some flowers.
I don't know. It just fills me with so much joy. Like seeing trees in the ground. It's weird. I don't understand it. It's just one of those things I thought I'd never be like my dad, but now as I'm growing older, I'm like, man, I'm just turning out to be like the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad loved planting trees. And so, I mean, we have a new place, and so I'm doing some of the landscaping, and I'm just doing it myself, just manually.
Yeah.
Yesterday we did a bit of grass weeding.
Weeding, I mean, to keep you company. I thought, okay, let me just keep you company. And also,
it must have been your
I
first
weeded
time in your life.
In my life, I didn't know
weed.
how to weed.
Yes. So, some things you don't confess on live TV.
Oh, I don't.
So it'll be there forever.
Oh,
So
dear.
Peterson M says watching from Nairobi, Kenya. Peterson, great to have you watching. So good that you could join us.
Tell us how long you've been watching, Peterson.
Absolutely. And anybody else who's joining us, there's quite a few of us joining. So tell us how long you've been watching. We just love to know you and to get to hear your name and just to kind of figure out who's part of this family, who joins us every Tuesday.
Yeah.
So hey, so we want to talk a bit about but we did have a bit of downs. I think we had people who were unwell around us.
Yeah.
I think this is just one of those scary seasons when in Kenya especially, I don't know about Uganda and some of the other parts, Thailand and other places, but I know in Kenya there's what they're calling the third COVID wave.
Yes.
And that's been a little scary. We've had a few friends or people we've known lose their lives. Or be hospitalized. So I know that maybe there's some of you who've been concerned about it, maybe there's some of you who've been affected by it, and it's just a deal right now.
It is.
I think we do need to take care. I think one of the things I've been telling people is people in Kenya, I think we've relaxed because we got so used to living with masks and sanitizing that it just became second nature. So much so that we began to assume it.
Yeah.
And so now you see masks as, what are those things called? Like handkerchiefs.
They're now hanging
neckerchiefs.
They're now hanging by our chin.
And I mean, we're just not being serious about it, and it's decimating. So I mean, right now I just saw something, Citizen TV saying the ICUs are full.
Yeah.
And so I just want to encourage you, our viewers, please just take the precautions you need to take. I think as Christians we need to be responsible. We need to be good stewards.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, if you start to feel any boost your immunity. I think that's one of the things we've been learning as a family.
Yeah.
And if you start to get any symptoms, then you need to start learning to treat. And you've been really good at this because I think you've had COVID already.
I've had, yes.
And so you've ended up on phone calls with many people talking about how to look after your health once you get an infection, or even when you start feeling symptoms, or even before that.
Yeah, and my basically my thing is don't let it deteriorate. Don't immediately you feel symptoms.
Start to do something about it.
Start
and how do
treating
you treat
immediately.
Because I mean, when you go to the hospital, doctors tell you they check you and then they send you home.
Yeah, they send you home. Yeah,
Because they're not supposed to really start treating you until you start getting respiratory issues.
Yeah, and
Which
by
is
that
crazy,
time
because
yeah,
by
it's
that
too
time
late.
you're being ready to be admitted is when they're supposed to start
And there are no
treating you.
beds, by the way.
It's actually insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So what the first thing that you do is that don't allow the sore throat, because usually you will get a sore throat. Don't allow that to develop. So you do want to have in your home kit, like a spray for spraying your throat. And it's not mouthwash. There's someone who I asked, so what are you doing for your sore throat? And they said they have a mouthwash, just a regular kind. No, you have to go to the pharmacist and get a spray
For sore
spray, for sore throat.
So basically deal with the symptoms. So it's a cough, take a cough syrup.
Take a cough syrup and spray your throat.
But then there's also some other things you're doing, like immunity boosters.
Immunity, yes, like vitamin D. There's D3. There is vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams. There is zinc. I think zinc is taken in conjunction with vitamin D and vitamin C. Then there's this amazing thing called neem capsules. If you can get those,
Neem is a major antiviral, antibacterial.
It is major. It is so major. Honestly, if you take the neem capsules and just take two twice a day, morning and evening, when you take, you can actually feel the relief, or just a relief in your body. So neem capsules, and then of course the usual dowry.
Okay. So you heard it from the doctor. She's not a doctor, but she's become
home remedy.
like home remedy queen, and we've actually been able to help many people. She's been able to just have many conversations, and of course there are other things out there that you start to take. What's that medicine that
HCQ?
No,
ivermectin.
Ivermectin.
Yeah, ivermectin is actually being used to treat.
It's a drug. It's a worm.
It's a dewormer.
It's a dewormer basically.
Yeah, and I know someone who was given.
Google it and you'll see that it's
working.
It's working. So I think the key thing we're saying, we're not doctors, but what we're saying is don't take the advice of go home and wait until your symptoms become bad. Don't wait for that. I mean, treat as quickly as you can, and it's beatable. It's actually beatable. I know there's a vaccine and many people are queuing up for that, and that's okay. But I'm just saying, hey, not everybody's got that or access to that. But in the meantime, just make sure you're looking after yourself. So, okay.
I know for me, I was really relieved by the, just one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
To know that it's treatable. I was so relieved. I had carried so much weight and so much anxiety. But as soon as I just learned that there is treatment, just a huge burden fell off. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could talk about this the whole show. It's a big issue right now, but we're not going to talk about that. So, but you had it. At least you've got some basics. Make sure you're looking after your immunity, keeping safe, sanitizing, masking up, those things. Let's not lower our guard. You've got lots of work. There's lots of calling on your life. There's many things God wants you to do before it's time. Don't go to heaven before your time has come.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
So okay. So Alora watching from Nairobi, first time. Awesome. Woo-hoo. Welcome, Sana.
Welcome.
It's great to have you. And then Lucy says she started watching from mid last year.
Woo.
That is so
You're
cool.
a veteran, Lucy.
Yep.
I hope you've been inviting people.
Yeah, I love it. And then OJ Shikuku says watching from Nairobi, first time.
First time, welcome,
which
OJ.
Is so awesome. We love our first time visitors. And then Virginia Minor says tuning from Kahawa Sukari, been here since late last year.
Wow,
so good. Well, we're so glad. We pray that this is being a blessing to you. We hope that this is enhancing your thinking, your marriage, your all-round leadership. This is what we hope this show will do for you.
There's Judy Ndagwa. Good evening.
Oh, love it. Welcome, Judy. Great to have you here.
Tell us how long you've been working, on this show.
Yeah, so we want to jump right in and we want to start talking about gender differences.
Yes.
Is there such a thing as gender differences? That's kind of what we want to talk about tonight.
Yeah. I must confess, when we got married, I didn't think so. But anyway, let's go ahead.
So you're already giving away your perspective here.
I didn't think so.
But we had quite a good conversation today. Thank you for all of those who are part of our Ndoa Couples community, and you're part of Asking for a Friend. There's a chat group. If you're in the Ndoa Couples community, there's a chat group that every Tuesday we share the question beforehand, and people are able to share their questions. And by the way, that's one of the things we love to do, is this Ndoa Couples community. So if you're part of it, if you're not part of it yet, you can actually click on the link on this YouTube video, and you'll actually be able to, you get a WhatsApp prompt, click on that, and you'll be able to get right in. And once you get it, save our number. If you don't save our number, you won't get messages from us. But you'll be able to join the Ndoa community. And you can be part of our chat group every week, and we just discuss issues to do with marriage. And part of our hope is it's a mentoring space. It's a place to just change our thinking, get us thinking right about our marriages.
Yeah.
And so today we had some great conversations there.
Yeah.
And so maybe I'll just read a couple. We can read a couple, can't we?
Yeah.
So someone said, holding on. And by the way, I was supposed to be like recording this, wasn't I?
Oh, wow.
You're supposed to
goodness.
remind me, babe. So, okay. All right, I'll just record it.
Okay.
So someone said, holding on to traditional gender roles helps decrease uncertainty in relationships and marriage, which leads to greater relationships and marital satisfaction. So basically what this guy is saying is when you have clear traditional roles, and it's traditional roles and gender roles, I don't know, he didn't say what those were, but she said it helps decrease uncertainty in relationships and marriages and leads to greater marital satisfaction. I don't know if there's research behind that, but it was just there. I guess it's asking for a friend. It's basically your opinion, and this was this person's opinion.
Yeah. Before I go to the second, there's a lady here called Mary who says the link for today's YouTube was not shared in the WhatsApp, so maybe you can be checking that
okay.
out. Yeah.
I thought it was okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So this was somebody else's comment. They said, it's only Kenyans who say me, I.
Clearly that's not a Ugandan.
No, I only know that women carry the baby for 9 months and then breastfeed. All the other roles can be done by both. In other words, that's just the unique role that exists, and it's just for women, but the rest is fair game for everybody else.
So funny the way it's expressed.
Yeah. Then there was this other one who said, and this one it was a question, and it came with a lot of feelings. I mean, you could really tell. And it was, I find it very unfair that when a man is asked to provide everything, while the woman stays at home, she's called lazy. And I know that the women really struggle, especially when they have to stay at home. They really feel worthless, and I don't know. So I know that really comes up.
But she's saying basically when you stay home as a woman, people might call you lazy.
They will. They might call you. And when she works, she's still expected to care for the home as if she's a stay-home mom. Honestly,
so you've got a full-time job, but then you're still supposed to be the superwoman in the house.
Superwoman at home.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think God didn't mean for it to be burdening to one and liberating for the other. In weddings, you hear the advice people give you, and you just wonder. Now, our son should eat. He should be dressed like this. And you're given, all this a long list of the way you should take care as a woman. Yeah. And then the man was created to rule the earth. The woman was a helper. Why can't this work? You help in everything. If she's cooking, you wash the kids. If he's paying the school fees, you buy the food. So
wow. Yeah, it was a by the way, it was really lively, and thank you so much, guys. I really enjoyed the discussion. I must be honest. I mean, every week is different. We never know how lively or not lively the conversations will be. Sometimes guys are either too busy, or maybe we just picked a bad question.
Yeah.
But I just felt like today there was such an engagement, and I just loved listening to the groups.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun conversation.
It was a fun, and that's what we want to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
It's important to know that we're not talking about gender roles in general, but specific to marriage.
Within marriage.
And that's a significant difference. So earlier today we were discussing that there are generally 3 different views of marriage.
Yeah.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. We're having this conversation, and I mean, and it's important that we're not talking about men and women. We're talking about men and women in marriage, in the context of marriage, and so and keep that in mind as we go along. So there are three views on marriage, and I think let's talk about the first 2 because they're the ones that are very commonly held and known.
Yeah.
And the first is a traditional view, and I think those comments we were sharing actually represented some of those views.
Yeah.
So there's a traditional view, and then there's what we call the egalitarian view. And so the traditional view basically says that there are strictly defined roles between a husband and a wife. The man is the boss, basically, is a leader, is a provider. He works outside the home to bring home the bacon. And the woman basically takes care of the home, including raising the children. So there's very clear, distinct roles. The kitchen is a woman's domain. There are places, there are cultures, and some of our traditional cultures, where some of us come from those cultures where if the man was seen by his mother-in-law in the kitchen, the wife would just be accused of mistreating her son. It's like this boy is just being oppressed. So I mean, that's not his place. He's not supposed. So that's a traditional view. It's like there's some roles. Changing diapers, there's some roles. Those are women's work. And then there's some roles where it's like fixing the car, that's man's work. So that's a traditional view of marriage.
Yeah.
Then there's an egalitarian view, which is kind of like the complete opposite, because it states that there's no difference in roles between husband and wife, and it really boils down to each person's gifts, so what works for the couple at that time. So it's basically choice. It's how you feel, it's how you decide as a couple. That's where any role fits, and it's almost expressed by that lady who said the only difference between us is I can breastfeed a baby and give birth.
Yeah.
Everything else
the rest
is on the
fair
table.
game.
And interestingly, by the way, you're going to find both these views are very commonly held among Christians today. You find Christians who both love God, very compelled, convinced that are serving God, but having these two very opposite views.
Yeah. And I mean, that's true. And with both spouses mainly working outside the home, there's quite a bit of confusion, especially.
Yeah, because nowadays, I mean, it's not like the guy isn't the one outside.
Yeah,
like
both people are working at home.
Outside home.
Yeah. And for example, who is the provider? Especially if the woman is earning just as much or even more. And there's a question over there that comes up. And then things get even more confusing when we mix our African viewpoints with views from the West, which are strongly influenced by feminism. I mean, it just really adds, to that whole confusion.
Yeah. And feminism. You want to talk about feminism? Because I think we talked about that earlier.
Yeah. So very interestingly, one thing that we might not be aware is that feminism actually started in the U.S. among Christian women, and they were fighting for their rights to vote. And this happened in the 19th and 20th century, and that is what is called the first wave of feminism.
Yeah, it was started by Christian women.
It was actually started by Christians.
That's very interesting to just read that history and to actually realize it was actually started from their scriptural convictions.
Yeah.
Their reading of the New Testament, their understanding there's no male or female in God's eyes in that way. Yeah. And that's fighting for that. So that's a very interesting. You'd never imagine it actually began with Christian.
And it made a lot of sense because voting really it should be there for both men and women. And then the second wave, also I think in the States, I think a lot of things started there. And it started in the 1960s, and it focused on quite a number of issues. And at that time, there was inequality at the workplace. So you're a man it's a man and there's a woman. You're both doing the same job, but then your pay is different. And so they were protesting against that. They were protesting against reproductive rights. I think at that time, contraceptives were not as common. And therefore, even if a woman wanted to work outside the home, she really couldn't because she was giving birth all the time. So they were fighting for reproductive rights. They were talking about domestic violence and saying, hey, it exists because it was something that was hidden. They're also talking about changes in custody and divorce. I mean, those were the really hot issues that were going on at the time. And I believe that these issues were just as relevant for women here today. They really are. Even as they are common across the world. And women, it's really true, have been treated unfairly because of patriarchy and male dominance.
Yeah.
And that's what we have
And I mean,
seen.
people would argue even till today, those are not issues that have been resolved. I was just reading about in Europe that they were having a debate. COVID has sort of pushed women's gains back in the workplace. And just how even there's now conversation about what laws should we put to protect women. So I mean, this whole thing about women putting in equal work but not getting equal pay, that's been an issue, and I think it's a big issue even till today.
Yeah.
That Christians must stand against.
Yeah.
I think there's equal work deserves equal pay.
That's right.
I mean, and for me, I really believe those women were onto something, and I think it's not just women; it's men who need to support that as well. But the only problem, I'll say, and here's the only caveat I'd give, the feminist movement, as it continued to evolve, because I really believe that the things it stood for are very scriptural, and absolutely that we must continue as Christians to stand for those things and to fight for those things. The only thing is, I feel like it moved from we have the same worth, we have the same value, to society, in God's eyes, whatever it is, we have the same value, and it moved to there's absolutely no difference between us.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a trajectory that you start with something good, but then you push it and you move to the opposite extreme. And so a man and a woman are identical. Today you're going to find that that's the view out there, the common view, that the only difference, I mean, gender is basically, it's really a matter of preference. It's actually, that's where we moved from. It's a matter of feeling. I feel and I identify, and that becomes my gender. So we've moved from the place of, wanting to be equal, to fight for what's right, which is equality, to equal rights, and move to the place where there is an absolutely virtually no difference. Yeah. And this is a wildly held view in our culture, even among Christians. In our fight against one problem, which is patriarchy across the world, we've created a completely different one, which is gender confusion across the world again. Yeah. So I think that's a big challenge.
Yeah. So basically, we have the traditional marriage, which is characterized by male dominance. And then we have the egalitarian marriage, which is characterized by role confusion. I mean, that's so crazy. Yeah. But, let's talk about the third option. Let's just talk about that. And the
third option is what we talked about. It's called biblical marriage. And, the thing about it is, if you have a product, you don't know how it works. Today I got a router, an extender, Wi-Fi extender because the Wi-Fi is not working in our bedroom. And I basically bought one from Jumia, of all places. They haven't paid me to say this. They should. But anyway, I got this Wi-Fi extender, and the funny thing is, the first thing I did is open the manual to see how it works.
Yeah.
When you don't know how something works and you're confused about its purpose, the place to go is the manual. And so I think the first thing is to look at the role of men and women according to God's word. And for me, in Genesis chapter 1, it says around verse 28, it says God created man in his image. Actually, it's 27. God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And then in verse 28, chapter 1, 28, it says, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. So I think the first thing I see here is that gender is God's idea. It says God created them male and female in his image. So he didn't say he created male in his image. Some people think that Adam was made in God's image and then Eve came as an afterthought. That's not what the Bible says. It actually says male and female. Right from the beginning, God already knew that there would be a female that would need to be to complement this person, and that without the female, this person was not a complete reflection of his image. Mm-hmm. So I think the key thing I'll say about biblical marriage is this, and I think today we're kind of dealing on. We're starting a bit on the higher, like 30,000 foot view, before we get down into implications. So the first thing I'd say is the biblical view can be confused by both people in the traditional and the egalitarian view camps as being their perspective, because it has similarities to both. In terms of the traditional view, biblical marriage is very similar to traditional marriage in terms of that it affirms clear, distinct roles for men and women. In this relationship, God envisioned a task, a place where humans, male and female, complement each other to fulfill his purpose. Building a family, caring for the planet, and fighting the enemy. Standing against his enemy. So in this relationship, they would have distinct roles that would actually complement each other, that they would use to support and encourage each other, to nurture, protect their children and society in general. So that's the first thing. When you're from a traditional perspective, you see that and you say, but that's what we believe, and that's absolutely there's a connection there. But from the egalitarian perspective as well, which says there's no difference, somebody might see this and say, but it also stands with what we agree, because just like the egalitarian marriage, God created men and women as equals. Complete equals. There is no favor that is given to one gender over the other. In fact, it's interesting because God says in chapter 2, he says, I'll make him a helper. And many people think, but I was the one given the job, she's the helper. Actually, you need to understand what the word helper means, and you might have heard your pastor say this somewhere, that the word helper is the same word that is used in the Bible for the Holy Spirit. Jesus says, I will send you a helper. When the Holy Spirit is coming, he's not your maid. He's not that guy who cleans after you. That's not what a helper means. He's actually an exalted, somebody who comes to encourage you, to help you fulfill your purpose, but he's actually not somebody you look down on. And basically, this is a role. This is basically a powerful and exalted role that this woman is given, the first role. And so I think it's important to understand. Yes, both might have a view of the truth, but there's something they're missing because they're only one part of the truth.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't seen it that way. That the traditional actually when someone reads the Bible, then they can read the traditional.
You can read your part, and
You
it's just
can.
like you stop on your part.
Yes.
And you're like, this affirms that men are superior, and that, you know.
Yeah.
And then the person from the egalitarian is reading and saying, but there's no male or female. This supports that.
This supports.
So you need to understand that both can be actually read.
Yeah.
But it's a both and. It's not an either or.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
actually something in between that is unique if you actually push it to that.
Okay, I mean that's quite interesting. I hadn't quite seen it that way. But maybe you can explain to us or share with us the biblical role of a man.
Okay, and we'll talk about a man and a woman.
Yeah.
So let's see how far we can go.
Yes.
And I'm going to just connect my laptop here because I can see it's already showing. It's flashing red. So let's see. Let's get you on here before we talk about guys. Okay, so if you're here and we're talking about the role of a husband, basically, what's a biblical role of a husband? So if you're married, if you're a guy, this is your role according to scripture. If you're a girl who's already married, this is what your husband needs to do and be. If you're planning to get married, then I think this is just okay, this is what it looks like going forward. But I feel like there's a couple of things when you talk about godly masculinity in marriage. And the first very important role is the role of a priest. And how do I read that? You know, in right from the Garden of Eden, when something goes wrong, when Adam and Eve sin, it's interesting that God comes and then asks Adam, where are you guys? What happened? Did you eat? You know, it's almost like God asks Adam. Why? It's not because Adam was created first or is superior. It's because he has a role. And that role is the priest of the home. In the New Testament, you're going to read Paul admonishes men to present their wives spotless, without blemish before God. The same way Christ presented the church. And so there's a place in which men are called to be priests. And it's a unique role that a man is called to be a priest in his home. Yeah.
Very interestingly, when you look at culture, it's the women who really lead the prayers.
They're the priests.
Home. Yes, and they're the ones who instruct, the children in God's word. And many times we'll find that the husband drops the family off to church on Sunday. He goes and then comes and picks them up.
That's
after. Yeah, it's like there's an abdication there.
It's a complete abdication of the role, because I feel like the thing about it is, and for children, we learn spirituality, and especially boys, we learn spirituality from our fathers, not what they say, but what they do. Yeah. And we learn morals and culture. That's something that is very powerful that men have.
Mm-hmm. Before you go on, there's this lady, and I don't want to do this and just tell her to hold on.
Yeah.
And it says, she asked, this is Joyce Olinda. She says, what happens when you have a partner who parades like he helps with everything in the house, but literally he does nothing, only holding the TV remote. So I guess we're getting to that.
It's
Joyce, just hold on there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. Those are good questions. That's what we need to so keep asking your questions as we go. We'll try and touch on them. But I think what we're trying to say is, number one role is the priest. And it's so funny when you go to weddings. I don't know if in Uganda it's the same, but in Kenya, who prays in the wedding? It's the woman. Let's call Mama so and so to pray. Why? Because in our culture we've modeled that priestly roles belong to women. And in the family, it's a women who pray, it's a women who are close to God. Men's role is almost like reserved.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's an abdication, and that's actually that's demonic influence, I think.
Yeah.
I think as fathers, we need to be the ones leading. We need to kind of teach ourselves to lead family devotions. And I can tell you, it wasn't easy for me. It wasn't natural. I didn't want to do it. But I think as I read the scripture, I just realized this is my role. If my kids don't see me interested in scripture, if they don't see me interested in prayer, then they will also follow suit in their generation. Yeah. And so I think one of the things we're saying is, as a man, it's your role to be a priest over your family. I know that even that I believe there are prayers I pray for my family because the authority God has given me as a priest in this home. Prayers of protection and cover that I believe God answers very specifically because I'm playing my priestly role.
Yeah. How come you didn't feel like it was a struggle? Why? A woman here would be asking, how come it's a struggle? Why isn't it an easy thing to do?
I don't think just because it's your role, it's easy. Easy. And I think there's a part of us that many times just we shun responsibility. I think none of us. Yeah. But I feel like, and I also think like for guys, we mature emotionally a bit slower than women. And there's an intimacy that is called for when I lead prayer that I wasn't ready to give. I didn't feel like I was ready to give. Okay. But I feel like it's important for a guy to just understand, this is my role. This is my role. And if I'm not a priest, then my house, if I'm letting my wife carry that role, then she'll carry it. I'm not saying a woman can't carry it, but it's what we're talking about, gender roles. By the way, I don't think any of these roles, these roles can actually be carried by the other person. So let's not say only a man can be a priest in a home.
Yeah.
Even the other roles we'll talk about. But the problem is when you let your spouse carry that burden, then you're really burdening them. And it's one of those things when you come to start to understand in life. I mean, there's some things that you are shaped to do. When you do them well, the house sings, the home is happy, people are in place. And this is how God created us. So anyway, I'm going to put that out there. If you have any questions or pushbacks on that, I'd love to hear. But the first role of a man is,
priest.
Do you think the man should take care of the wife's car? We're coming to that just now. That's a great question.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the second role.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where that question might come in, but I'll have caveats to it. When it comes to the home, the second role is protector. A protector. Now, husbands are called to be protectors. Men are called to be the warriors who defend their home. They're the ones who are supposed to stand in the gate against the enemy. Now, it's interesting because when Eve was being tempted by the enemy was inside the house, already talking to the wife. And many people say, oh, the woman is the one who sinned. If she hadn't sinned, there wouldn't be a problem. But listen very carefully, read between those lines. Where was the dude? He should have been there defending his wife, but he was probably out there just frolicking, doing his own thing, until his wife now brought him the fruit that she'd been asked to eat. So because he abdicated in his role, then I think that's where the problem began in the home. So I think one of the things we're saying is, you know what? This is actually your role as a husband, that you must defend your family, leading wisely, being a man of integrity and uprightness.
Okay, so in the group today, there's a lady who said that when she first got married, she actually knew how to change a tire. In 5 minutes she could do it. So what do you do with that kind of a woman? So before we go into Molly Wamboi, who asked about taking care. Yes, this lady was saying, you know what, I could change a tire in 5 minutes. And then Molly is also asking here, should a man take care of the wife's car? Yeah.
So let me put it this way. I mean, it's possible that your wife is even better with cars than you are. In fact, I remember when we first got married, actually even till today, I think you're more concerned about the car than I am.
Yes. The cleaning, not the changing of wheels.
Yeah, but still, I still don't care. Men, it's supposed to be a guy thing to go and sit in a car wash and get your car cleaned and buffed and all that. I feel zero. So you're basically the one who's done that ever since we started driving.
Yeah.
So, but and let me give you another example. Maybe your wife is an officer in the army, and you're a paper pusher somewhere in some ministry somewhere. So she's the one who knows ninjutsu and all the self-defense. Yeah. So basically, I don't think protector just has to do with the skill. I feel like there are roles that, yes, if you can change a tire, go ahead and change it. I don't think it has to be your husband who changes the tire. I don't think that's what we're saying. But I think what I'm trying to say is, when the Bible talks about Jesus giving up his life, because in Ephesians chapter 5, when it talks about husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church, and he gave himself up for her. Basically, Christ's love for the church meant that when Christ saw that the church was in danger, that we were in danger, he gave up his own life that we would have life. Mm-hmm. And I feel like as a husband, it's my role to care enough for my spouse that I'll put her comfort and her safety. I'll put hers before mine. Mm-hmm. So if it means her life is in danger, I'll put my life in the line. If it means her comfort, so basically it means that that's how I protect her. I protect my family. Yeah. But beyond that, I think it's even more than that. I think there's even the place of being, King Solomon talked about the father's role to be able to protect his children by passing on godly wisdom. Many fathers are away. We're absent from the house. And who's teaching our kids wisdom? It's a TV, it's other sources. And yet, actually, it's a father who's instructed to teach his kids godly wisdom. Yeah. So I think those are some of the ways that you protect your family. Also, Solomon talks about protecting your marriage. When he talks about infidelity in the book of Proverbs, he talks about men. It's actually men he talks about. He criticizes men for infidelity. If you notice, we've read the Proverbs quite a few times, mm-hmm. isn't it? Mm-hmm. He doesn't talk to women about infidelity. He talks to guys.
Men, yeah.
For women, he talks about nagging and some other things.
And then he talks about the virtuous wife.
And the virtue. But in terms of infidelity, he has chapters just addressed to guys. And I think part of it is I protect my home by making sure that my family is protected from the devastating cost of sexual affairs. Because when men enter into infidelity, they harm their homes. So I think what we're saying is you're a protector. So number one, you're a priest. Number two, you're a protector.
Yeah. And here Molly again asks, does it mean protecting from in-laws?
Absolutely. Thank you, Molly. Yeah, I mean, when we have an issue and my parents, actually, that's something that I believe every man should do. You should make sure that your wife is your queen. She's your queen. So what does that mean? It means that when the in-laws come and they criticize her, it's like, over my dead body. And what I've had to do and what we've done in my marriage, and I thank God my parents would not criticize her. But when they come to talk to me, and maybe they're asking for something, a favor or something, I will always push back to her. I'll say, let me talk to Carol, and then she'll get back to you. And part of what I was trying to do when I started doing that very early in our marriage is to say, hold on, there's new management in this house. You need to go through her. And I mean, we did that for each other. She did the same for me with her own folks. But I think part of what I was doing is making sure that your in-laws will never come in between you in the marriage. It's your job. Too many guys will put their spouse under the bus. When it comes to in-laws, and that is abdicating your role of protector. So thank you, Molly. That's a great question you asked that, and you're absolutely right. That is part of the role of a husband.
So the first you had talked about priest, and then you talked about protector. What is the third role?
Okay, let's talk about the third role. Are you seeing us talking about women today? I think today we just talk about
today we just talk about men.
Already, this is taking much longer than I thought it would. But anyway, so let's just go. I mean, it doesn't matter. We can always push it another week. So I think the third is the role of provider. It's a misunderstood role, but I'll just mention it anyway. Husbands are called to be providers. And Paul talked about, say to Timothy, one of the people he was mentoring, if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So, I mean, those are tough words. And I mean, I don't want to today to criticize or to feel, for anybody watching this show to feel I'm pulling them down. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I feel like the reality is when a man doesn't have a job, when a man isn't producing, there's a deep inside sense of shame. Let me put it that way. Even if the guy is on the remote and sitting in the living room and looking like he doesn't care, there's something that nags at him. And the reason is because God created us very different. I mean, for men, our sense of worth comes from our productivity and our winning at work. When a man loses his job, he gets it. That's why you can find a guy getting into depression. It doesn't matter how much love he's getting at home. If he's not getting
love and affirmation
he's getting at home, and it's going to help for sure. But if he's losing at work, he feels like a failure. Women, on the other hand, and these are generalizations, I know, but women, on the other hand, she could lose her job, but if she's got a warm, loving, secure family and great friendships and relationships, she still feels a human being. She still feels a sense of worth. And part of the reason is because we are wired that way. I mean, we're wired to, in that sense, to provide in that sense. It's not to say that a woman doesn't provide. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there's a sense of shame when a man is not able to provide. And that's part of our role as a family.
Okay. And so, and I'm so sure someone here is asking about when you said that the woman, not only earns, but she earns more than him. I mean, what should happen in that kind of a situation? Yeah,
I mean, this is the reality today. Many men are in the place where maybe you're the one hustling with a business, your wife has a good corporate job, she's earning more, or whatever circumstances, lost your job, whatever. Or maybe she just is more qualified. She just is able to get a better job. What do you do in that kind of situation? And I feel like many times that creates a confusion, because if you come from the traditional perspective, then you're at the place where I'm supposed to be the provider. I'm not providing. I'm failing. And then the wife is almost feeling like you're making me carry the job. She's feeling the pressure as well. But I feel like in a healthy marriage, there's never competition between the husband and his wife. So even on those occasions when the woman is earning more than the man, or maybe the man is out of work or whatever it is, this man will always still seek to take responsibility. And it's not the basis of a desperation to prove yourself. That's not where it's coming from. I mean, we've had situations when I couldn't work for valid reasons, and she's the one who was bringing in the income. But even in those times, I think that the important thing at that point is I made sure she didn't carry the load by herself. I made sure that I supported her in what she was doing. I made sure that she felt that support, and I made sure also that in the space of providing spiritual cover in the home, providing stewardship, complementing what she was doing, I mean, I don't see any shame when a woman is the one who started the business and then the husband comes alongside to help her. I don't think there's anything in scripture that works against that, because it's our wealth. We're a team. So in that sense, I feel like the key thing here is just to understand, yes, I may not be able to provide financially at this point, but it doesn't mean I sit home with a remote and feel sorry for myself. I need to still be asking, how can I provide? Maybe what I need to provide at this point, because there's an economic value to it, is looking after the kids. And that's providing. But understanding that I support my wife and I support my family and I make sure they're succeeding. So there's a provision role there that is a very deep part of what a man is supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Okay.
So
those are 3. So the 4th one?
Okay, yeah, so that's the 3rd one. So I please let me hear your comments on that one. I mean, I thought that's the one that
provision is such a big thing.
Yeah. So if you have any comments on that or thoughts, I would love to just hear them. But these are just some very deep convictions here. Number 4 is a servant leader, and I think that's an interesting spiritual role, huh? Because the husband, we hear this talked about a lot. He's supposed to be the head of the home, the leader of the home. Paul tells us the husband is the head of the wife, but he quickly changes or disabuses any notions of being the boss leader that the world knows. There's a boss leader that guys are used to seeing, because this is not male dominance. This is not patriarchy Paul is talking about. He says, love your wives as Christ loved the church, and as Christ is the head of the church. And he says, Christ loved the church by giving himself up for her. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. So Christ died for the church. Remember, we talked about that earlier. This is just that, a very radical kind of leadership. Taking responsibility for his wife and kids. Putting their needs ahead of his. Sacrificing your TV, sacrificing your golf game, sacrificing if it means that I need to do this for the sake of the family. Taking one for the team. If there's someone to take one for the team, it is you as the husband. And this is what God has called us to do. I mean, I remember just even today I was meant to be somewhere, and I really wanted to go, but then I realized Carol was not feeling well at that point. And I just had to cancel my plans, and I didn't do that because because I felt like I needed to do it. But it was just that thing of, okay, I can't leave my wife without knowing, and I think it's something that husbands have been called to do. That's part of my protector role, but it's also part of my servant leadership role. Is I lead the family. I even set an example for the kids that this is how I look after you guys. And so I even told the kids I can't go because I want to make sure that the house is okay in my absence.
Yeah.
So I feel like these are some of the things that when the Bible talks about leadership, it's not a positional kind of leadership. It's a sacrificial kind of leadership.
Yeah.
When you look at it, it's actually a terrible job that Christ had, because he came to die, and basically what the Bible is saying is, husbands, die.
Yeah.
Be willing to die for your family, and actually not even dying like giving up your life, like being shot, taking the bullet for the family, literally. But even every day, there are opportunities for you to die for your family, and that is part of your role as a husband.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting as I listen to these roles. It's a very exalted role. I mean, it's a high calling. Let's put it that way. To be a priest and to do that effectively, to be a protector, to be a provider, and also to be a servant leader. I think these are roles, as we were saying, people might not know. Men might not know. Women might not even know. I mean, you may just have a feeling instinctively, that the man should be leading, or he should be the priest, but they are not things that people know or even understand. And maybe we can just address something here that Molly says. There are men who earn but do not contribute anything to the home. The lady ends up paying, doing everything: rent, mortgage, food, fees. What can you tell such men?
Yeah, I'd say, I'll be honest, part of the challenge that men have faced today is it's part of that absent fathers in society. And I think what has happened with absent fathers is boys are not being brought up to understand the role of a man.
Yeah.
So this is a boy who's been brought up at home, probably just looked after, maybe even brought up in a traditional home where his sisters did the work, and he just enjoyed himself.
Yeah.
And now he has a wife, and he doesn't know that it's my role to look after. He's just this guy. So I mean, you can see what's rotten, but you can also understand the culture and the problems that are causing us to have this.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of emphasis, and there's been a lot of emphasis, and rightly so, on the girl child and correcting some of the abuses of the patriarchal past. which left the girl not even going to school, not being invested in, not being seen as a worthwhile citizen. And so correctly, again, the emphasis on no, women have to be educated just the same. Women have to have as equal opportunities. And I feel like that's been a very healthy thing. But I think what also should have happened at that point is the boy child should have been involved in that conversation.
Yeah.
But I think what happened is then it was almost like, okay, you're already privileged, so step aside and let's focus on the girl child.
Yeah.
So what's happened is a whole generation of boy childs who have no idea what their role is.
Yeah. And I think even in attempting to correct that situation of the women being oppressed and so on, I feel there was a place maybe to address the men, as you're saying, or the boy child, and say, actually, no, when we talk about leadership, we're talking about servant leadership. So that it is both the guys and the girls who are being talked to. Because if it's just the girls, then, oh my goodness, you have then the women taking off and being all these things, and then the men have been left behind. And I think maybe for Molly, maybe that is what has happened. When you talk about the men who are not contributing anything, that is somebody who has been left behind.
And doesn't even understand.
He doesn't even understand.
And so I think we need to rehabilitate the men. that's kind of, I feel like there's a place to rehabilitate the boy child. Huh?
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember, and for me the reason I'm saying that is, if you remember some of our mentors, we have some great mentors. One of our mentors that I really admire, he's like one of my top 3 mentors is Bishop Masika and his wife Agnes, out in Yatta. And some of you know them, some of you who are listening to this, you know them. Phenomenal couple, and they went to the rural area, place where there was impoverishment, one of the poorest places in Kenya. Through teaching biblical truths, they in 10 years created a village of millionaires. Basically taught people how to work together, taught people how to rule over the land.
Together as husband and wife.
And no, but initially it was wives first. But then I think what they realized, because the men had all abdicated, all the men had gone up to town. So he basically began working with women and teaching them that they can actually take the land they've been given and make great wealth out of it. But what they realized is immediately that began to happen, it created even more tension in the family, because now the women had money and the men had nothing in the slums. So what a typical NGO would have done is just said, look, we're undoing years of patriarchy. We need to put the women up and let the men deal with it. But immediately, because this man was coming from a biblical perspective, he and his wife she especially is the one who came up with this idea of a family government. And they basically decided we have to rehabilitate the boy child. Because these men had left their wives, they were in the city, they were hustling and scratching for survival. They were basically living hand to mouth, but they had neglected their families, which is what men sometimes do when things are thick. The guy just looks after himself. So what did the guys do? What did they do? They started teaching the women how to receive their husbands. And they began to teach them about honoring and respecting these men. They began to teach them about helping them understand that this is our things. So when the man would come to visit and find his wife with a new cow, she'd basically tell him, this is our cow. In fact, this is your cow. But then she'd say, but the milk is mine. So basically what they were trying to teach them is, how do you partner? How do you start to partner so the guy isn't feeling threatened? And so the woman isn't feeling, so you haven't created a new, you've not moved from patriarchy to matriarchy. You've actually bridged the gap. And what happened is they ended up creating what they call the family government, where you go to that place and there's just an incredible equality. Men and women sit at the table with their kids, they call it the family government, and they have cabinet meetings every month and basically discuss the finances of the home. Something that I don't even see in middle class families.
This is happening in the rural areas.
This is rural areas. But I think part of it was just, and sorry for such a long answer to the lady who asked that question. There's a place that we have to start rehabilitating, because if you just go and say, okay, you're just a failure, or you're just not doing your job as a husband, you haven't solved the problem either. So part of it is we have to start figuring out, how do we rehabilitate our husbands? How do we rehabilitate our wives? How do we begin to bring a biblical view of marriage into our home? Because I can tell you, he's abdicating in his responsibility for sure. That's a for sure.
And I think that is the pain. That is the pain that many women find themselves.
And that's a pain many women find themselves in. But again, attacking or proving yourself right won't solve the problem either. So again, it's just in prayer figuring out, Lord, how do I help this guy begin to understand that is actually not.
And then interestingly, people, sometimes we may enter into marriage, because I guess those are different expectations. Even when Molly here was asking, should men take care of the wife's car? And those are just different expectations that are in marriage. and they have to do with roles.
Yeah.
But sometimes we come into marriage without really having had those conversations. You haven't done like a course or anything like that kind of
You need common values.
And I think when we talk about rehabilitation, it's rehabilitation of both the man and the woman. So I know that as a woman you might be feeling, just from the questions that have come up, you might be feeling pained, my man is not doing this, or men are not doing this, and it's really painful. But I feel there's a place to talk about rehabilitation for the couple, so that you can arrive at common values, so that now moving forward you're already like, oh, okay, we've talked about my expectations, you've talked about your expectations, and you're able to kind of forge the way forward for the two of you.
And you're right, because one of the things we discovered is it's very hard to tell your husband, and it's very hard to tell your wife. Huh? So what we found is the best way to learn as a couple is to be in a class with other couples.
Yeah.
Because then you start to realize, as you're sitting there and you're listening to the men talking, you start to realize, oh, my husband isn't mad. It's like, oh, that's how men think. Or my wife isn't crazy. I mean, this is how women think. And so some of the courses we've created are exactly for that. It's to allow you to have common values, to have common conversation for a season. And that allows you to already begin the conversation that you couldn't have. Yeah. So for instance, if you haven't done a marriage foundation course, that's why we have NDOA. Because NDOA is to help you create that common language. And it basically just helps you begin building the foundation. Maybe you're dating, those of you who are getting dating and planning to get married, then you have to take a course like that, because then it helps you have common language. If you already had it and maybe you just did not build the foundation strongly, you kind of put the house up before the foundation was in place. Then again, NDOA is still a great course, because then it takes you back, and there's a specific class for people already married. And then you're able to just discuss and learn together. So part of it is just being able to say, hey, how can we invest in our marriage?
Yeah.
And how can we, and I know couples who every year they do something for their marriage. They do something to, and if your husband isn't ready or your wife isn't ready to engage right now, then you need to engage them in prayer. You need to actually just say, okay, I'm going to pray until this person says yes to doing this course with me. Yeah. And I'm going to serve them and bless them until they say yes.
Until they say yes. And I think there are people who have done that, where someone is acting dishonorably, and you're really irritated about it, like, the TV remote, but you choose to act honorably and almost to call out that, to call out that role. And I'm not saying that you say, you're the provider, you're the protector, you've just learned all these things. Yeah, the way to call it out is actually through appreciating the person for the small things that they are doing. So, so whatever small thing that they are doing.
Maybe they drove you home.
Yeah, just say thank you.
Maybe
they are paying the rent.
That's part of
thank you.
That's part of their provision role or their protecting role.
Yeah.
So affirm it in that way,
yeah.
And do it genuinely, not manipulatively, but actually learn to just count your blessings. And you did that to me, didn't you? Yeah, there's a time that my wife. You want to tell the story? Go ahead. Your permission.
Actually, yes. Actually, what happened is that, of course, there were things that our feeling were not working very well, and so it's very possible to just focus on the negative things, the things that are not working. And so I think at one time I just came to the realization that to have a happy marriage, why don't I just first of all just start thanking God, and also thanking my husband for the things that he's doing. So, but I think that came from me understanding that my husband is my gift from God. No matter the things that are going on. No matter
what kind of man you marry.
Yes, he's my gift from God. And so I started saying, okay, why don't I now just see the things that he's doing that I can appreciate? And I started doing that. So he'd drive us home and I'll just say, thank you so much for driving. And for sure, I was like, actually, I don't enjoy driving. I really appreciate him driving, because driving all the time, that's really, sometimes it can be tiring. And so I think those are the small things that I began to do. And you can call it out and say, thank you for being such an amazing provider. Or thank you so much, when you drive, I really feel cared for, So beginning to put words to the things that you're appreciating, even categorizing if you must. Like when you prayed, or you said, or whatever it is, I really appreciate you doing that. I feel cared for, when you pray. You see, so that, and not in any manipulative way, and that may begin to awaken somebody to the roles that they need to play. Or it might awaken them, when you say, but they can we do this course, they will be more open to doing it rather than when we criticize.
Yeah. So Mary says, how do you deal with a spouse who's arrogant simply because he or she is earning a lot more? And
Yes.
that actually tends to be a very common situation. Huh?
Yeah.
Part of what happens in that kind of situation, I think, is because your money is unmarried. Huh?
Yeah.
And so what happens is when he's earning more or she's earning more, they feel like they have power.
Yeah.
And the danger is when your money isn't married, then it's his money and her money, which means when I'm earning more, I have more money than you, which means I have more power, or vice versa. And so one of the things we really encourage couples is you need, and I mean, for those who are dating, I'm glad you're hearing that question. You need to marry your money as you're getting married. You need to get into a place where you actually are saying, you're disclosing right from the beginning. You're working together. You're putting your money together. Now, for those of you who are already married and that's not the case, then I think it's then what you need to understand is, because they always say, I mean, for understanding the problem is half the solution. Huh?
Yeah.
So even just understanding that the reason you're in that position is because your money is not married. You're in danger because this guy he feels rich, or this girl feels rich when she has money. So part of what you need to then do is say, how do we get our money married? And that's why we created the course Couples and Money. By the way, you're asking questions that are completely, they're like questions asked by many, many people. And we realize that's such a huge issue for couples. Just that the fact that money brings, you pray for money, but then when it comes, it just creates rifts because your money was not in a place where there was common values with money. And so when you take a course like Couples and Money, you're able to walk for 10 weeks together and just put thinking together on money. And I can tell you what that does, it just gives you a perspective. I mean, one of the things that we teach in Couples and Money is how to marry your money. So at the place where, I mean, I cannot be, sometimes I don't work. I don't earn. So right now in our marriage, actually, right now in this season, she's earning more than I am. But it hasn't changed the power dynamics in our marriage because our money is married. And so I think that's one of the things I want to just encourage you, at least to understand that's where the problem's coming from. And how do you begin to help your spouse then? First of all, pray towards that, but then say, how do we create common values when it comes to money? Because I can tell you if it's a problem now, wait until they're earning a lot more. Then you will see some real problems. And so you want to make sure you address that problem in prayer as early as you can before it becomes a real issue.
And I remember last week from the guests that we had last week, and we're talking about, just working together with your money. And I remember, actually, it was the lady who said she really struggled with that because she had just said, I've just started earning my money. I don't want to really bring our monies together. And so I remember talking with her and asking her, so what is it that eventually convinced you to do that? And she said, when they started putting money together, she realized that it was more. There was more in their account than when she kept it all to herself. And so the whole thing about working together and bringing your resources
things
together.
Things multiply much faster.
Yeah, things multiply. You're able to invest much faster. There are benefits to working together.
Absolutely. And this is something that many couples don't know. You're actually underachieving. You're actually you're going so far below your potential when you work alone.
Yeah.
If one of you if God didn't give you your spouse by mistake, they knew exactly the gifts you needed by the time they got. So I mean, like this woman, I mean, she's so incredible. When I was young, I didn't even know like half the knowledge of what I have now. But I mean, right now, I just have come to realize, my goodness, she doesn't think like me. She thinks very differently. I see ideas all the time. I see opportunities. I see risk. I want to jump into things. She's conservative. She's slow to adapt ideas. So I used to see that and just think, my goodness, I could be the one making money for this family. She's holding me back. But then I began to realize her conservativeness is actually what we need to conserve money in this family. Left to myself, I'd have a string of startups without anybody running those startups. But she's able to come behind me, pick them up, and make sure they come to conclusion. She doesn't get bored and move to the next thing. And it's just realizing, my goodness, my spouse has complementary strengths that I actually need. You'll be so surprised. That spouse of yours may look like they're really sleepy and they don't understand issues, but you'll be so shocked when you start involving them that they have a gift that you desperately need and you don't even know that you need it. And that's why you must start learning how to work together when it comes to money. So these are some of the things when it comes to guys. I don't know if you guys have any more questions, but this is what we're talking about. Pastor says that this thing of money in marriage makes my heart beat a certain way. Looking forward to doing Couples and Money. Absolutely, you need to. You need to. It's absolutely something that will be very important. So I think so we're talking about the role of a man today, and I mean we decided not to jump into the role of a woman. We could have tried to do both,
Yeah,
but I feel like it's
wasn't-
good to
yeah,
just
to kind of digest
yeah
one.
to kind of digest one, to pick in a bit. And I mean it's interesting because I feel like the key thing I want guys to remember, if we have to talk about a key takeout from today, and it's basically looking at what we've talked about marriage, saying there's three kinds. There's the traditional, there's egalitarian, and there is
The
the
biblical.
biblical. And the problem is many times Christians who are on the traditional feel like they're very, very biblical because they can see some resemblances and even verses that support. The Christians who are egalitarian feel they're very biblical because they can even see verses that support. But both of those stop short of actually what a biblical marriage looks like. And you need to be able to read the scripture in whole to be able to see what God wants. For the man, we're saying these are your roles, that you're the priest of the house. So I want to just encourage the guys who are watching. And if you're watching with your spouse, I just want to encourage guys. This is your role. From today, just begin to pray that God will show you how to be a priest over your home. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. If you've not done it, you don't have the tradition. It's not something you saw modeled. But you know what? God is always. I mean, I saw it modeled and I didn't want to do it. So I had to ask God for help. And God is always willing to help when you cry out and say, God, help me. And so just how do you begin to become the spiritual role model in the house? It's not to say your wife can't lead prayer. It's not to say she's not even more spiritual than you. That's okay. I mean, you can have a wife who's more spiritual than you. But then it's saying that, hey, I am a priest. It's a role that God has given me. How do I begin to engage in that role? I'm the protector. How do I begin to engage in that space? Maybe there's a space to assess yourself and say, on this role, I'm doing really well. On this one, I'm not doing as well. I'm the provider. How am I in that sense? Whether I'm earning more or less, but still being in the place where I'm concerned about it and working as a team with my wife, ensuring that we're working together when it comes to providing for our future generations. And then I'm a servant leader. I'm serving, I'm putting myself on the front line. That's kind of what the role of a husband is.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So yeah.
There you have it.
Well, I wish I knew all this stuff when we were getting married.
Oh,
but
yes.
Now I do.
Yes. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
But it's all right. Yeah.
So let us know on the WhatsApp community if you'd like to, if you have any questions on this. If you would like to do Ndoa and you're part of the WhatsApp community, you can just tell us, hey, I'm interested in Ndoa. We'll send you information on how to sign up. If you're interested in couples and money, both classes start in May. It's not too early right now to sign up because when you sign up, you can actually even start, both courses have a cost to them. You can actually even start putting some installments down. That's how we always challenge people, avoid debt as much as you can. And this is how you start even to prepare and plan ahead. Put your calendar in schedule, at least know what time the classes are so you're able to plan ahead and get everything in place. So don't wait till the last minute like many do. You can actually start engaging right now. So let us know if you're interested in couples and money on Ndoa. If you'd like to see a counselor, we also offer that. We're happy to recommend. Any other questions you have? Shoot them to us. Yeah. So we're gonna conclude.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you wanted to say today? Do I play those roles? Do I try?
Oh yeah,
you
do.
Trying.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you do.
I've come.
We've come from far. We've come from far, but I thank God. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't understand why you do want to pray or ask to pray. I just found that very, very.
Just be patient with your man.
Yes.
In fact, the thing I always tell people is when you see a man who looks like a really good man, just understand he's been panel beaten. Like his wife has worked on him in prayer.
Yes.
In prayer and patience. Huh? So this woman's been patient with me. And so in your situation, I think you can actually pray and be patient with your husband. And hopefully there'll be a good result. And for the husbands watching or for the husbands to be watching, I think it's also just saying, hey, none of this role you can carry on your own strength. You're going to have to ask God to give you the strength to do it. All these are supernatural and spiritual. They're spiritual roles that require supernatural strength. And so you can pray for yourself that God will give you that strength.
The desire, the strength, and the grace to play those roles. There's Patrick Mongan, I believe this might be the last question. Talk more about men paying dowry.
Dowry, that's a really good question. That's one of my pet topics. Are you sure you want me to start?
Dowry. Oh,
yeah. So let me say something about dowry. I mean, I don't know what you think, but I have I feel like our African traditions have some beautiful godlike things that we must, it's like in every culture there are things that are just godlike. And I feel like the culture of dowry was a very powerful one, the way it was intended to be, at least the way I understand it in my culture. Because when you went to a dowry negotiation, you basically had this conversation
Yeah.
among relatives. Now, in different cultures, it was different. If you go to India, it's the girl's family that pay for the dowry. So I think those are just cultural things. But the thing about it, when I came to understand what it does, it allowed us to connect. So I still remember we had dowry negotiations.
Yeah.
And I remember what that did for us is my uncles, my aunties sat with her uncles, her aunties. It wasn't just me and her, or me and her and our parents, like happens in the West. Like our uncles and aunties and cousins were there, and there was conversation that happened, and there were events that allowed us. I mean, by the time we were married, we knew them well. We were actually connected with them in interesting ways. Her aunties now became, I mean, I know them. When she tells me auntie so and so, I know who that person is.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of that was it was a time to get to know the other side, to have conversation with them, to find out what kind of people they are. Sometimes you would deliberately make an unreasonable request, but it wasn't so that you can enrich yourself at their expense. Actually, the reason why you would do that unreasonable request is to see how they react.
Yeah.
And if there were people with a violent temper, you could immediately tell, or people who don't know how to talk, people who are confused, people who don't know how to negotiate.
Have wheat.
Those would be red flags, that you're catching about the other family. So basically what you are doing is getting to really know the other side well. You'd be exploring the family tree to make sure that there's no inbreeding that's happening here.
Yeah.
You're not marrying your cousin or something. Done well, it resulted, like in our case, I'd say it was done really well. Because in our case, what happened is through those negotiations, my dad and Carol's dad became best friends.
Best of friends, yeah.
And both of them just coincidentally happened to be the only sons in their home. So my dad was an only boy and Carol's dad was an only boy. So they both said, we have no brother. This is my brother.
Let's be brother.
Let me tell you guys, I mean, they were inseparable.
Yeah.
Like they knew stuff about each other that we didn't even know about our own parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that for me is the beauty
very
of a negotiation, the way it was meant to be. I think what happened in cultures, as modernity came in, is then some of that was lost. People lost the meaning of what those cultures were. Some cultures became very extortionist. Others became just, we don't even know what we're doing. And so I think in some places it's lost meaning. But done well, it really, and I feel for me, it really, really worked well.
Yeah.
And then what happened is the way you are treated by your in-laws, then you would have to extend the same treatment to your own daughters or sons, your own daughters' in-laws. So I know that the way I was treated by my father-in-law,
you are treated very well.
I was treated extremely
Lots
well.
of favor.
Extremely well. I mean,
So
the guy was so
you have
gracious.
no option but to do that.
So I can't do any
You can't
less
be-
for
yeah.
for my children.
Your
And
daughters.
so it's almost like that became the limit. I mean, I can't go beyond. I can't do less than what was done for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are, when you start to understand the culture and what it's like, that's a godlike thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that thing of, okay, I like you like me, let's move in together. And there's no accountability, there's no cloud of witnesses. There's some powerful things that would happen in the culture. So done well, that's the idea. Now, I mean, when you're talking about you're marrying, I mean, there's a couple watching, I think, process. You're marrying a guy from a different culture. It's even more important in that case because it's like you're even crossing barriers. And so you want to understand, how does their culture think? How do these in-laws think? And that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be an engaging time for you to understand the other side.
Yeah.
So I think for me, Patrick, I'd say I am all for it. But I do see that many times even the good things can be distorted and misused. And in that case, sometimes that happens in our culture as well.
Yeah, it does.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, and should that happen, I remember when we were getting married that we did say that we would continue to protect each other. And so there was a commitment that from my side that I let it know that, they need to be reasonable. Because there's a marriage. This was
We worked.
a dowry.
She was my secret agent inside.
Yeah, a dowry is just the beginning of life, and you don't want to have a good life and a good start together. And so there was just that whole thing of me talking on his behalf and just saying, let's just keep things reasonable here. And so, remember when we talk about protecting each other earlier on, as we were talking about the roles, I think that is one of the things that. For Patrick, if that is you or your friend, that you can say, actually, talk. The lady, talk to her side, so that if there are any excesses, just to find a way of bringing sanity in a situation that can be,
And I mean, back in the day, it was like if they ask for something excess, then you're supposed to really become eloquent, have good negotiators. So you're able to say, oh, dowry is never paid at once.
We will
in
give
fact,
it
this
all.
is too little for what you're asking. And then the guy would say, look, in fact, this will be a lifetime commitment. This will continue paying dowry the rest. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're supposed to come to a place where you reach and you negotiate. But I guess it wasn't buying the person like it's seen. When you look at it from a Western perspective, it just looks like you're buying a person. But I feel it had a much richer connotation. And in that case, it was a good thing. I feel like where it's been abused, then we really do need to critique it and question it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, that was a great question. Thank you so much, Patrick. Love that you asked that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
next week we're talking about roles.
Hey, next week is our season finale.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we're finishing. We're going to take a break. We always take a break in April. So next week is our final show of the season, season 3 of Asking for a Friend. Thanks for those of you who've been working with us since the beginning. I mean, it's just been such an honor to walk with you. We love that you're part of our community. We love that we can share the lessons we've learned, and through sharing them, be a blessing. We love that many of you in the WhatsApp group, you share your own wisdom, and that's blessed the rest of the community, because that's what this whole thing is about. It's creating a community where marriages work.
Yeah.
A community where marriage is seen as a good thing, because the culture doesn't support that perspective. We're passionate to make sure that there's a place where people actually believe that marriage is possible and good marriage is actually God's plan. Yeah. So next week is our
season finale. We're talking about roles
in marriage, and we'll focus
women.
a lot more for women.
Yeah. So hey, tell your friends when we send the flyer, send it out to people who you think would benefit from that conversation. So we can get blessed together.
We'd love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to pray. Is it okay if I pray for everyone today?
Yeah.
All right. So allow me to pray for us, guys. Father, thank you so much for every person watching, whether they're single or married. Lord, I just want to thank you for every single person. I thank you that nobody's here by coincidence. You brought them so they could hear this. I pray even for the ones who watch after this, they watch the recording. And I just pray that, Lord, everyone who watches this will be blessed. We pray that, Lord, you just free our minds from the slavery, from the chains, from the bondage of this world that causes us to think so negatively about the gifts that you've given us. And Lord, I pray that everyone who's watching this would actually have a great perspective towards marriage. That, Lord, their leaning would not be based on what the world teaches, but what your word teaches. And that as they consult the manual, you give them the answers to the marriages that they desire. And so we just speak a blessing over you, over your week, the rest of your week. Pray that everything you put your hands on, the Lord will bless. Pray for you that you'll be blessed at work, you'll be blessed at home. Pray for your health, that you'll be blessed as well in this season. And that in everything, you would have a grateful heart. For we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Awesome. Okay. So keep safe. Take care of yourself. Make sure you don't go and do crazy things health-wise. By the way, these things, I mean, they sound like so cliche, but sanitize, put on your mask.
Yeah.
Keep your immunity up. Neem pills.
Yeah.
Or buy neem. And by the way, neem is actually quite affordable. So it's called morobaini.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can actually get the leaves and just create a steam bath for those of you when you start feeling some symptoms, and just breathe that stuff in. We've just found that, my goodness, God has given us so much in nature that can help us in this season, even as we're waiting to see the developments and what happens in the future. So God bless you. Keep safe.
And good night.
Good night.